Class 10th, let's continue our chapter number 1 of Civics, the Union Parliament. Turn page number 21, children. Now let's start powers and functions of the Union Parliament. So Parliament today is not a law-making body alone. It is a multifunctional institution performing a variety of functions. But it is clear that the intention of the makers of the Constitution was to make Lok Sabha a predominant chamber. It was quite a harmony with the true spirit of democracy because members of the Lok Sabha are elected directly by the people, whereas Rajya Sabha represents the people in an indirect way. Members of Rajya Sabha are elected by the state legislative assemblies. Powers of the parliament may be described as follows. Legislative powers. So, as we know that Parliament is not only a law-making body, but it is what? It is a multifunctional institution, right? And which performs a variety of functions, right, children? So, it is clear that the intention of the makers of the Constitution was to make Lok Sabha a predominant chamber. It was quite in harmony with the true spirit of democracy because members of Lok Sabha, as we all know, they are directly elected by the people. So the people means UAF, right? By the UAF. And whereas Rajya Sabha represents the people in an indirect way. So they are Rajya Sabha members are elected by the state legislative assemblies, members of state legislative assemblies, right? So the powers of the parliament, are described as follows. Number one, legislative powers. Legislative powers. The Parliament is competent to make laws on matters in the Union list and the concurrent list, residuary powers, and matters in the state list. So, in this, there are many subjects in our constitutions and they are divided among the state, the union, and the concurrent list, right? So, thus, in the concurrent list, the parliamentary laws overrules the legislative law of the state, right? The constitution also has the powers to make the law in some of the circumstances, like when the national emergency is under the operation, when the Rajya Sabha passes a resolution act, or if it is required by two or more states to request the parliament, or when the rule of the president is under operation, or when it is important to give recognition to international treaties, agreements, and conventions. Right, children? Okay. Now, see, in the powers over the union list, the parliament has exclusive powers to make laws on the 97 subjects in the union list, including important subjects like defense, foreign policy, and communication, etc. Right, children? Okay, if we talk about the powers over the state list, the parliament can legislate on subjects included in the state during the proclamation of an emergency, right? And during the president's rule in the state, or when the Rajya Sabha passes two-third majority that a subject in the state list has assumed national importance, the union parliament can legislate on that subject, right? Or when two or more states are of the opinion that the parliament should legislate on a subject given in the state list, the parliament may make an act, right? Now, powers over the concurrent list. So, in the concurrent list, the parliament can make laws on 47, right? 47 subjects listed in the concurrent list, right? So, if there is any conflict between the union parliament and the state legislature on any law over this list, the union shall be prevail. The union law will prevail, right? And residuary powers mean that the parliament can make laws with respect to all those matters which are not mentioned in any of the three lists. So those three lists, any of the three lists means union list, state list and concurrent list, right? And the bill to amend means to change, to alter. The constitution may be moved in either house. Either house means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, right? It has to be passed in both the houses by a simple majority or by a two-third majority, right, children? So, as the case may be, as provided under Article 368 of the Constitution. So that comes under the powers over the concurrent list, right? So these are what? These are the legislative powers of or the functions of the Union Parliament. Now, next we have control over national finance. So, this power has various functions in it, like it includes the performance of the government, particularly with respect to the financial committees. It also includes the enactment of the budget, also, right? And money bill can be introduced in Lok Sabha, and then it is transmitted to Rajya Sabha for its recommendations. The Rajya Sabha must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within a period of 14 days. With its recommendation, the Lok Sabha is free to accept or reject the recommendations made by Rajya Sabha in money matters. Right, children? Next is a budget. Okay, the Parliament has the power to pass the annual budget of the Union government for the financial year, right? It contains estimates of receipts, income, and the expenditure, and it estimates an expenditure and the general budget, which are shown in the two parts. Number one is estimates required to meet the other expenditure of the government of India, as well as expenditure charged on the consolidated fund of India, right? So if the amount sanctioned under the demand for grants in the financial year is found to be insufficient, in that case the government can make a fresh demand for grants, which are known as supplementary grants, right, children? So it is also thoroughly debated and voted upon in the Lok Sabha, and it can also sanction expenditure on contingencies. If we talk about the supplementary grants and the contingencies, that means a contingency fund is what? It is that fund which is designed to be used for meeting any unforeseen emergencies, we can say. And the objective of this is to enhance financial stability and to protect the financial planning or financial plan in case of emergencies, right? Okay. So that comes in your control over the national finance, right? Or financial powers or functions of the Union Parliament. Now, next power is control over the executive or administrative affairs. The Constitution lays down that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People. The ministers continue in office so long as they enjoy the confidence of a majority of members in the Lok Sabha. There are several devices or ways through which the Parliament exercises control over the executive. So, control over the executive or administrative affairs, that means the Parliament exercises control over the Union Council of Ministers. There are various means, various ways through which the Parliament exercises control over the executive, right? So, how? What are the ways? So, that ways are: number one, the question hour, which is also known as interpellation. Just underline this word, interpellation. So this means question hour. Through questioning in question hour, the Parliament exercises control over the executive, right? Second, we have adjournment motion, And next we have censor motion and no confidence motion, and last we have monetary controls, right? So in this the executive functions of the parliament, there are various ways through which the parliament exerts the control over the executive. This is done through 0 hours, question hour, adjournment motion, calling attention motion, etc., right? Okay, in this, the question hour, which is also known as interpellation, the first hour of sitting in both the houses is allotted for asking and answering the questions, right? The purpose of the question is to obtain information on a matter of public importance or to ventilate a grievance. The question hour keeps the ministers on their toes. So the parliament has a right to ask questions on a matter of public importance, right? And in that way, that the parliament or the members of parliament um, keep the ministers on their toes, right? So it is a valuable protection against injustice and slackness on the part of the government, right? Now next we have adjournment motion. Motion for the adjournment furnishes the opportunity to censor the acts of omissions and commission of ministers and administrators, and this motion is pinpoint the failure of the government in the performance of their duties. It is moved only in the Lok Sabha. The following are some of the subjects on which adjournment motions were allowed. Number one, killing of a senior IPS officer. Example, it's given here, in a place of worship. Second is death of several persons due to consumption of unlicensed liquor. Adjournment motion is a privileged motion unless it is qualified in any way. The time for the adjourning is already established, or unless adjournment would dissolve the assembly, right? The privileged motion to adjourn is used to end the meeting immediately without debate. If it is a main motion, it cannot interrupt pending business and is amendable and debatable. If there is any unfinished business at the time of adjournment, it is carried over to the next meeting if that meeting is within a quarterly time interval, right? So when a body has completed the schedule order of business at a meeting and there is no further business for the assembly to consider, at that time the chair may simply declare the meeting adjourned without a motion having been made. This much for today, children. We'll continue with the same chapter in the next video with some interesting and new topics. Till then, bye bye.